Let's go to Cardiff and Dr. Ronald Eccles, Professor Emeritus and the former director of the Common Cold Centre at the University of Cardiff. Thank you for joining us here on France 24.
Good evening. Very pleased to be with you this evening.
So different rules for the island of Ireland, different rules for the United Kingdom. You're about to embark as of Friday onto a 2-week circuit break, 2 weeks of return to lockdown effectively. Your thoughts, was that warranted?
It's very difficult to say. And actually, Wales, the politicians here also always like to be different. They're calling it a fire break, not a circuit breaker, a fire break. And we're not allowed to leave home except for limited purposes. We can't visit other households or meet with other people we don't live with. The shops, a lot of shops, restaurants are closed. And there's restrictions on the schools. It is only for 2 weeks, but I think people are becoming very tired of these regulations. There is a fatigue setting in. And in many parts of Wales, which is a large country, with only 3 million people spread across that large area, many people are in very low areas of infection, and they are wondering, why are we being put into this fire break?
Yeah, I was about to ask you that because you're in the south, which is densely populated, the former mining areas mostly. In the middle, there's the mountains, and it's sparsely populated in the north. Was a nationwide lockdown necessary?
I don't think it was necessary. I think we could have continued with the local lockdowns in the areas of highest population. And I think that is why people are resenting this. I think when you look at why are we having a national lockdown, you could say, well, is it easier to lock down the whole country than just have these local lockdowns? Or is the Labour government in Wales trying to emulate what the leader in England is saying? He was calling for a national lockdown in England. And there is something political about this as well, to say, look, Labour in Wales, we can lock down the country. We're doing the best thing. And the National Labour leader is calling for a national lockdown, but the Conservative politicians are not listening to him.
So you feel like you're being dragged into that tug of war between the Labour Party leader in London with Boris Johnson, tug of war which is also with the mayor of Greater Manchester. Wales wanting to do the reverse, you say. Let me ask you, Ronald Eccles, you're the former director of the Common Cold Centre, and many of those common colds are coronaviruses, right? So as far as you're concerned, do we have any visibility as to whether or not there's light at the end of the tunnel at this point?
I think there will be light at the end of the tunnel. We have 4 coronaviruses that cause the common cold, which for most people is a mild illness. And these coronaviruses have in the past come from animal origins, just like SARS-CoV-2, which is now causing COVID-19. However, it's going to take quite a while for that SARS-CoV-2 to come down to be a common cold virus. It may take years. I think it will go very quickly if all of the population is exposed to the virus. It may only take 1 or 2 years. If we have a very slow progression through the population, it may take a decade or so before it becomes a common cold virus. So yes, but the main light at the end of the tunnel is the vaccine. I am very optimistic that we will have a vaccine at the beginning of next year. And hopefully it will be effective enough to protect the people who are at risk, and we'll be able to get back to a more normal life.
Well,
not completely normal. COVID is going to be with us for years.
I was going to ask you, have vaccines proved effective in the past with coronaviruses?
Never. We've never developed a vaccine for coronavirus. So I think that is a major hurdle. But we've got the whole world of science looking at this. It's almost as though the spotlight of science has been turned on this virus. And we've got, I think, over 130 different vaccines being developed at the moment. Probably half a dozen of them are now at phase 3 in clinical trials. The Oxford vaccine and another vaccine are pretty close. They've already shown a good immune response. They're into phase 3 looking at safety. I am reasonably confident we will have a vaccine. It may not be the most effective vaccine, but we will have something that will be able to protect some of the population.
And so, because the world's minds are concentrated on a first ever vaccine against a coronavirus, does that mean that, turning to what's been your life's work, that we will have vaccines for the common cold, or will that not be necessary?
I think it is necessary because common cold usually causes a relatively mild illness in the majority of the population, but it does cause a lot of morbidity. It exacerbates asthma. It causes severe lower respiratory tract infections in infants, bronchiolitis. It causes infections in the ear and the throat. And of course, it causes early mortality in the elderly. The last cold you get is the one that kills you. So, yes, I believe this huge effort may eventually lead to quicker and more rapid development of vaccines against many different viruses, including some of those that are causing serious morbidity with the common cold.
Dr. Ronald Eccles, I want to thank you so much for joining us from Cardiff. Good luck with that. What is it, the fire break you called it?
It's a fire break. In Wales, we're always a little bit different.
Okay, many thanks for joining us here on France 24.